All right, what's up everyone? This is Don with Third Creative, and this is the walkthrough tutorial video for All the Stars Baseball and Softball Photoshop Template Bundle. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all the layers, the processes, and hopefully cover anything and everything that you might need to know in order to create the best images possible with this design. You can see, just like all my others, got a lot of ratios and files to work with. This design does include a grass infield for baseball as well as a dirt infield for softball. So I'll show you how you can switch between the two. I also went ahead and kept the American flag accent corners in there. This is how I originally designed it for this team. Obviously it complements their uniforms, it works well, but understanding that not every team is going to want the American flag corner accents, we've got another option which you can see up here as well. I also wanted to demonstrate the options you have in terms of showing feed or not showing feed. Obviously on the left you can see there's a standard option where you can hide feet, save yourself some time and some work. However, if you want to get a little more wow factor with your images and show feet, you can see that there's a couple ways that you can do that. The grass actually extends all the way to the bottom, so I think that looks kind of nice. I've got some sample images where you can see, you'll notice that I kind of changed the sky color to complement the uniforms and the subject images and the color schemes. So that's something that you can do as well. This one I went with no borders at all. Here we have the star borders. You can kind of see I went with purple here to match. I think it's a nice touch, but just some sample images just demonstrating some of the options. You can see here the corner accents. I left the stars off. So all kinds of options, which is something I like to do often. Let's jump into it. Got our 4x5 vertical file. Just keep in mind that everything that we go over is pretty consistent with the other files as well, so should apply across the board. I like to start with the very bottom layer folder, which we have background layers. We'll open it up and just work our way from the bottom all the way up. So this is pretty standard stuff, but I've got lower background color. That just refers to this white area. So if you want to change that, just simply double click that swatch icon. You'll get your color picker, and you can kind of work your way around this prism and kind of work your way around this box here to find the color that you want. And then of course you can always come over here and start to sample from the uniform to get a good starting point if you want to do that. So pretty standard, pretty simple. Next I have an ellipse shape, and so that's a shape layer that I was able to clip the background image to, so it only applies to where that shape is. So if you were to move this shape around, you can see if you want it more centered, you could do that. Got options there, but more likely not something that you'll need to bother with. It does have a drop shadow, so adds a little dimension to it. Here we go. We've got our dirt infield option, turn on or off. So I'm going to turn it on. You can see that the grass goes away. It's all kind of blurry anyways, but that makes it a true softball infield. So if you're photographing softball, you want to turn that on. If you start moving layers around, just be very careful. You don't want to scale or move either of these layers without including the other. So if you're going to do anything, maybe hold down Shift and click on one, then the other, so you have them both selected. And that way, if you did decide to scale up or down or anything, it's going to stay with it. Next we have a lot of adjustment layers that are clipped to this background. I'm going to kind of come up here to this color overlay. This is an optional color grading layer. This is a technique that I use in many of my templates, but it's just a color overlay, and the blend mode is set to soft light, and I've got the opacity all the way down at 7. If I turn it off, you can kind of see it changes subtly, but it just adds some kind of reddish orange tones to it. It makes it a little richer. If you were to start to bump up this opacity, you can see the effect is much more drastic. But you also have the option to change the color. So if you double click this icon here and get your color picker up, you might want something cool. You might want something more purple. So again, you can adjust the opacity to your liking, and you can play around with the colors. But next I have a color lookup, and if we come up here to properties, we can see, let's see, actually I'll just turn it off. It just kind of adds some pop, brightens up the highlights. And we have another one here. You could turn it off and on and kind of get an idea. These are optional, so the opacity is 40% on this one, 35 on this one. You can play around with them, you can turn them off. Same goes for all of these. I just kind of piled up a little more than I usually do, but if I were to strip all of this down, you can see kind of what it looks like. So when we build it back up, looks a lot better. I have a levels adjustment. If you turn that off, you can see it loses some of its pop. So it's up to you whether you want to leave that on or off. And any of these you can adjust the opacity of. But the big one we have here is our hue saturation. And so you'll notice up here in my properties that it's all zeros. And that is because if you see right here, I've got the cyans and the blues, which make up the sky. Got those affected. Cyan is the primary color for your sky. So if you wanted to adjust the sky color to match your subject a little better, like the example I gave before right here, which is a very purple, you can select cyan, and up here you can start to move it left, you can move it right, and see how it starts to turn purple. You can adjust the saturation, boost it, reduce it, play around with it. Same thing with the lightness and darkness, but also the blues are in there as well, and so you can play with that. You can see down there in the horizon line, you got some blues in there that we're affecting. So this is how you can adjust the sky to your liking so that it complements your subject better. So hopefully all of that makes sense. Next we have some atmosphere. So if I turn that off, you can see it's just kind of some haze, and I've got another layer as well. So these can be turned on or off. They can also have the opacity adjusted. More than likely not anything that you'll want or need to do, but the option is there, and that is everything that makes up this background layers folder. So if I turn that folder off, you can see it's quite a bit. Next we have our upper text layers. We'll open that up. It's pretty simple, 2 layers. We've got our team name and we've got our sport name. I also have an outer glow, so you may or may not want that outer glow. I have it off on the sport name by default, but you can turn it on. And you can also double click the word outer glow to get your layer style panel. You can play with the opacity, the spread, the size, play with some things if you want to, but really you just need to update your team name. And so let's see here. We could go with, let's say, Hawks. Once you get it how you like it, you may decide that you want to move it around. I hold down Shift and Alt or Option, and you can scale it up or down. You can position it how you want. If you want to change the color, you probably will end up wanting to also turn off outer glow, but totally up to you, but you can go with another color. So what I did is double click this T icon to get everything selected. You can come up here in your properties, or you can come up here and get your color picker and set it to anything that you like. You just want to make sure that there's a good amount of contrast, and in most of mine I just felt like white worked the best. Just depends on the team color scheme that you're working with. Sport name, it's currently at baseball, so if you need to change that, you can just type over it. We'll go with softball. And again, it's just double clicking on this T icon to get everything selected, and you start typing. Now, depending on your subject arrangement or the team name, you may want to move this around, move it over, up, down. You can always come to your character panel and you can reduce the size. I don't know. Oh, I see the problem. And you can play with the size, make it bigger, make it smaller if you need to. So let's get everything back the way it was. There we go. And we'll close that up. Pretty simple. Next we have our corner accent layer. So you got some options in here. If we open it up, by default we have this big star corner accent. So if I turn that off, you can see if you don't want any corner accents, you just turn this layer folder off. You're good to go. I did include the exposure vignette in this folder, so you can see what that does. It kind of just draws you into your subject. You may or may not want that. You may or may not want to adjust it. If you do want to adjust it, you can double click the icon here, get your properties. You can drag this left or right, and you can see the effects that you get. If you want the American flag option, you just come up here and turn this layer folder on, and you can see we have the layer American flag, excuse me. It has a drop shadow, so you can play with that. I did play with the hue and the saturation a little bit. You can see this is for the bottom one, so you can see I made it a little less purple in the blue. So you can adjust that if you want, and I also added some levels just to give it a little more pop and contrast. But really it's just a matter of whether you want to turn it on or turn it off. We'll leave it off and we'll go back to this big star corner accent and open this folder up. So very first layer is the upper left star. There is a stroke outline you can turn on if you want that secondary or I guess third color, but you can leave it off. Now they have a color overlay, so if you want to change the colors, you just click on the word color overlay, click on this little icon here to get your color picker, and of course you can make it any color you want. Once you do that, you probably want to right click and copy this code so that you can go ahead and come down to the second star and click on the word color overlay, and we'll paste that in there, and it just keeps it exactly the same and consistent. Same thing goes for the actual corner layers itself. They have a color overlay. There's a drop shadow, so changing the color is the same exact way. And again, just copy this code so that you can apply it to the opposite one and keep everything consistent. If you did want the stroke outline on the stars, you can just turn these on, and it's the same thing. Double click the word stroke this time and click on the color box to get your color picker, and you can select any color that you want, and again just copy and paste to the other one so that they remain consistent. You can turn the stars off and just go just with the borders or the corners if you want to, as we saw in some of the sample images. And that's it. There is a texture, which I guess I didn't rename that texture, but you can see it's kind of a paper texture, so you could turn that off if you just want it super clean. You can turn it back on if you want to keep that there, and you can even play with the levels. If you want it to show up a little bit more, you can open this up and you could move some of these anchors over to get it a little more bold and prominent, if you want to go that far with it. What else do we have? Repeating star corner accents. Okay, so let's get this where we can see it. So in the opposite corners, so bottom left, top right, you see the repeating stars. If you want both of them to be the same color, then you can turn on this color overlay right here and double click the word color overlay and pick the color that you want. However, if you want them to be different like they are by default, you just need to open up the folder. We've got our top right one here. Double click the word color overlay, click the box, pick your color, and repeat the same thing for the bottom left-hand corner. Very simple. Next we have our big star corner. Well, no, actually we've already covered that. Next we have our hollow script accent option. So this can be turned off if you don't want that. If you do want it, we'll leave it on and open it up. So basically what I have done here is I have two text layers, and I put the fill at 0 and added a stroke outline, and so that's why it will show the color through. If you want the text to have color, you just need to bring this back up to 100. Obviously that doesn't look good, but depending on what you're doing and how you're setting it up, there may be a scenario where you want the color to show through. Same thing here on the bottom. But if you want to leave it like it is, it's really just a matter of double clicking and typing in your team name. And once you do that, you may or may not want to kind of move it around and position it. The idea is not necessarily, to be able to read it. You may be able to tell that it's part of the team name, but it's just kind of, kind of a trend. It's just adds a little bit more to the image, so you can scale it, move it around, adjust it however you want to. But to change the color of the outline here, it is a stroke. So again, very simple. Just double click the word stroke, click on your color box, and pick your color. If you want them to be the same, again, copy this code and paste it to the opposite up here. You can also, if I open this up, make the stroke outline bigger or smaller. I felt like the default value that I have here of 5 looked pretty good, but there may be some scenarios where you want it to be a little more prominent. So if you double click stroke and increase this value here, you can make the stroke outline a little bit thicker. We'll close that up, and that is everything for the corner accents. We've got our subject images. Let's open that up and take a look. So basically you got two options. By default, the hide feet option is turned on. If you want to show feet, you would turn this off and then turn the one below it on. Now I have a sample subject in here, and I have a sample contact shadow. So if I turn the subject off, you can kind of see it's just painted in there. But I do have these soft ground shadows, and they are reusable. And so if you were to hold down Alt Option and then click on one of these and drag down until you see that blue line, now we have another one. And they can be, I'll turn that off and just use this one. You could go with 1 if you want to, but basically you can move them around. You can scale them smaller or bigger. You can make them more narrow, taller. Depending on, if you're using white or the grass background, these are a little bit dark, but on the grass they look good. I have it at 40%, but you could change this to 20%. Just whatever looks good with the way that you set it up. But let's also, while we're at it, show you what you would do if you didn't want this white here. So if you're going full body, showing feet, you can come back down to the background. And what we want to do is just unclip this from this shape. So you could right click, and I think undo clipping mask is in here somewhere. Where is it? Release clipping mask. So the other way is, what I do is I just kind of hover my cursor right here, and I hold down Option until I see that. And once I see that, I just click, and it unclips, excuse me. And so that's how you can set that up so that you see all grass if you want to. So clipped, you're going to see this color here. And when you unclip, just keep in mind that all this other stuff unclips as well. So unfortunately, you kind of just go through and reclip everything back so that it looks right. It only applies to this image right here that's clipped to the shape. All right, I hope all that makes sense. So basically that is a very quick run through of the show feed option. The one thing I haven't covered yet is this turf texture. So if you go with a solid color here, you can turn on this turf texture. This is all kind of bold, so you may reduce the opacity levels of the shadows and all of that. You can actually see where I masked out some grass blades, so that looks good when it is just grass, but not necessarily on the white. Let's turn that back off, turn this back on. Now, more than likely you won't need to adjust this gradient mask, but if you do, two options. One, it's the cheat code, just click that chain link right here to unlink it and select your layer mask. And now you can, with your move tool, you can come up here, and which you don't want to come too low, but you kind of see you can bring it down this way or this way. That moves it up and down. But if you want to adjust it with a little more control, just select the layer mask, select your gradient tool, make sure that it's on linear, which is this right here. Make sure your opacity is 100%, and also make sure that you're working with black to white or white to black. So if you got something weird like that, just click the drop down menu, get your black to white. Once you have all that set up, it's just a matter of clicking and dragging. So click, drag down, you can make it as gradual, or you see it's kind of moving around. If you hold down shift, it kind of holds it in place for you. But you can adjust it just like that. And then if you keep working and you don't like it, come back and you can fine tune it again or some more. And that's it. That's all there is to that. One thing I didn't cover is this right here, darken lower leg. So let's go back to, this is more of a, if you're showing feet, so you can add a little artificial light fall off there. Now that doesn't look good with this white background, but if I were to come back down and unclip again, which I've got all kinds of things going on here. I think I need to turn that off. There you go. And so you can see the difference. It just kind of helps blend it in just a little bit more. So that's up to you. If you want to adjust it, you can just by double clicking here to get your properties. You can make it really dark or just barely noticeable. So you can adjust that if you want to. All right, let's keep it moving. Actually, let's just back up. You know what, I think since I've done so much, I'm just going to go back to its original state and just do it that way. All right, so we've got our lower text layers. Let's take a look at that. So we've got player name and number. Turn that off. You can see, and then there's also the home plate with the year in it at the very bottom. So let's look at the player name and number. We'll open that up. So jersey number, very simple. Double click unless you're using automation. And I've got it left oriented, so it should just work its way from here out towards the left. So make it easy for you. We've already talked about how to change text color, so we won't cover that again. The accent bar, double click the word color overlay, and we've already gone over that as well. First name, it is right oriented, and so you could type and it should just all line up. Same thing for the last name, and the colors are changed the same exact ways. Properties, or if you select and highlight your text, you can come up here to the top. Pretty simple. Looking at the home plate year, we'll open it up. So this has a little bit more going on to it. So I've got this home plate shape layer with the fill at 0. So it's transparent except for the stroke. So double click the word stroke, click on your little box here, and you can change the color to anything you want. You could also increase the size if you want it to be a little more bold, totally up to you. We've got our 20 and our 26. So it's set up to be over the line and under the line. So really, you probably, other than changing the color, would only be changing the 26, at least for a few more years. And then we have our accent bar, which you can change the color just by clicking on the word color overlay. All the same stuff. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. And that is it for the lower text layers. There is a grunge texture that is applied to these, which is very subtle, but if you zoom in, you can kind of see. If you don't want that, just turn it off. And again, you can adjust opacity and the levels if you want to fine tune it. And that is super quick. Well, maybe not super quick, but super quick for me. Mine usually run pretty long, but we ran through all of the layer folders, all those specific layers, and hopefully I covered everything. But if there are still questions left unanswered, feel free to reach out, don@thirdcreative.com. That is all for this one. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, we'll see you.